people are, but there's objectives to that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The reality is our enemies, potential enemies, folks that we've been training to fight for the past couple decades, they are 100% using religion as a narrative, as a tool to have their societies, their soldiers feel a certain way, to enable them to justify their actions, atrocities, and do them with ease without blinking an eye. And we have to hold ourselves to a different, higher standard. I'm thinking about Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite theologians from Europe.
So I'm stationed right now in Grafenberg, right, and the Flossenburg where he died is about 15 minutes drive.
Mm.
And to me, that is an example. Here's somebody who was absolute pacifist, devout pacifist to the max, and ended up in concentration camp because he was in the plot to assassinate Hitler.
Yeah.
But it's also an example of somebody who resisted with every fiber of his being, of taking Christian faith, taking religion, and entangling it with the fascist Nazi regime.
Yeah.
Resisted till the end and died for it.
Yeah.
And I think that is a beautiful example for us to uphold.
And I think one of the contexts to Bonhoeffer on this, to me, which was fascinating about his life, is that not only did he do that, but as, from historical aspect, as he began getting involved in that sphere, he also brought in the Archbishop of Canterbury. So he's reaching out to allies and working with these folks. Not only that, but he also went to school in New York for a small period of time. Understanding that, which I think is one of the fascinating things about psychological warfare, is having to bring all of these aspects in. While Dietrich Bonhoeffer probably wouldn't have listed his as psychological warfare, but I think he understood it.
Yeah, he understood it. He saw it. He saw what Nazi Party was doing.
Yeah.
How they were taking that yearning that we all have to be close with God, that desire we have for some communion with something higher than us.
Yeah.
And just perverting it, converting it into a monstrosity.
Yeah. And it's interesting. A fun fact, real quick, is I spent a few years out in Stuttgart, and so there's actually a church. There's actually a church that in Stuttgart that has a museum in the bottom of it, and in that is a museum and timeline of the Valkyrie. Mm-hmm. We all know it from the movie, but there's a museum that goes through the entire timeline because there was a headquarters in Stuttgart that started kicking off a lot of that aspect from that underground piece. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer's mentioned in that multiple times of kind of coming through the area because he spent some time in Wiesbaden as well. So I think this is fascinating and leading into one of our, as we, looking at how these religious frame narratives come about. How do we deal with that? Understanding there's adversarial religious narratives, but framing it in truth, credibility, and moral grounding.
I mean, we need to be, like mentioned earlier, Aristotle, like we need to be tethered to virtue. We need to be tethered to our values. You might say, there might be some listening, they're like, well, I'm not really a religious person. So how should I think about this? Well, I would encourage you be open to it. It will help you. There's so many positive reasons to be open to spiritual growth. So that's first and foremost. I wouldn't shut it off. But second of all, I mean, the Army gave you values when you came into the Army, and they're the Army values. So,
exactly.
So you can always, pursue those and try to live up to those, and really, have people that will hold you accountable to how am I doing in these areas, when it comes to loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage, right? So have people that can really speak truth into your life, that have a healthy community that are going to hold you to that. I think the easiest way to do that is just voluntary faith community, right?
Yeah.
Because we're going to hold you that too. But I think there's certainly a place for every single person to think through these issues and to tether themselves, to hold themselves accountable so that they have a strong moral compass that will help keep them moving in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of things moving people, one of the topics we haven't covered yet is symbols.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've talked about hope, we've talked about driving factors, we've talked about grounding, we've talked about the dichotomy of moral and religious justification. Where do you see these converging in symbols? And do you have any examples of some symbols you've noticed along the way really grasping a society?
Something that you will, and again, man, I just can't help it, but the freshest example that I'm seeing right now is the war between Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
Seeing the attention that Russians are paying as soon as they show up and they take the city or a village or anything, they go out of their way to destroy all the symbols that remind the people of that particular area.
Oh, wow.
This is who you are. So take Mariupol, for example. I remember there was like a bunch of Azov dudes captured in that in the steel mill in the beginning of the war.
Yeah.
There were a lot of murals